These are my rankings for the last 10 NFL offensive players of the year. This is going to be very similar compared to my MVP video, obviously just with offensive player of the years. The only thing I will not be including is voter percentage, and that's mostly because I just couldn't find it. I don't know, man. I made this list at like 6 in the morning. Give me a fucking break. If you guys are new to the channel, you do want to see some more videos like this, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and be sure to go follow me on Twitch. I stream almost every single night. I play a bunch of different games, do a bunch of different things. Links down in the description or in the bio, depending on what platform you're watching this on. And with that said, let's get right into it. Number 10, Todd Gurley. A lot of newer NFL viewers might remember the name Todd Gurley. Most recently, honestly, his last run with Atlanta. Todd Gurley is a player who has permanently been limited by injuries. He has arthritic knees, and if you watched highlights from back in the day in 2017, you would have never even been able to tell. He won the 2017 Offensive Player of the Year, had 1,300 yards, which was second in the league, 13 rushing touchdowns, which led the entire league, and was second in rush yards per game with 87. He caught almost 74% of his targets, had almost 800 receiving yards, which was the most among running backs in 2017, and had 6 receiving touchdowns, which was also the most among running backs. Rams finished 11-5 and lost to the Falcons in the wild card, 26-13. The next year, they would end up making the Super Bowl with Todd Gurley and all that, but they did collapse against the Patriots. And shortly after that, Gurley, I think he played one more year there, and then he left, and then he went to Atlanta, and that was pretty much it for his career so far. I mean, he hasn't been signed yet, and right now, Gurley's a free agent. Within 5 years, the 2017 Offensive Player of the Year is a free agent. That doesn't sit right with me. Number 9, Cam Newton. This was back in 2015, where he also won MVP. I forgot to mention in the MVP video that he also won Offensive Player of the Year. And it makes sense completely. The Panthers were the best team in the entire league. Cam Newton was a very good quarterback, and he was the best rushing quarterback. Some could argue he's one of the best rushing quarterbacks ever. I covered stats in previous video. He was 22nd in completion percentage. He was 16th in total yards. He tied 2nd in touchdowns. He was 20th in passing yards per game and tied 7th in passer rating. And he also finished the year with over 600 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns as a quarterback. His team obviously made the Super Bowl in this year. He did lose to the Broncos and what would be Peyton Manning's last game. After this, Newton never had a similar season to this. Played with the Panthers for a few years. I believe he got released, signed with New England, had a promising start, then got COVID, got released in the offseason this year, and then re-signed with Carolina midway through. Number 8, Adrian Peterson back in 2012. You're going to notice a lot of former MVPs in this video, and Adrian Peterson is no exception. Prime Adrian Peterson was amazing, had one of the best all-time rushing seasons for any player in the league, had almost 2,100 yards, which was most in the league at that time and second most all-time in a single season. He had 6 yards per carry on over 300 attempts, 12 rushing touchdowns, 131 rushing yards per game, which led the league and was 5th most all-time in a single season. Vikings would finish 10-6 that year and would lose in the wild card to the Packers 24-10. After this year, Peterson would battle some injuries, and then after that, like, you could just tell it rapidly declined. He signed with a bunch of different teams. Right now, I believe he's a free agent. I'm pretty sure he's going to retire soon. Number 7, Matt Ryan back in 2016, who also won MVP this year. People forget there was a time where Matt Ryan was a top-tier quarterback in the league. This was without a doubt his best year. He was top 3 in every major category. He was 3rd in completion percentage. He was 2nd in passing yards. He was 2nd in touchdowns. He was 2nd in passing yards per game. He also led the league in passer rating. Falcons finished 11-5, ran through the playoffs, went to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. You've heard the story before. Falcons led 28-3 in the 3rd quarter. Due to Kyle Shanahan's fucking greediness, the Patriots would come back and win in overtime. This would be the closest that Matt Ryan would ever come to a Super Bowl. He spent pretty much the rest of his career up to this point in Atlanta until this year he got traded to the Colts. I think he'll do well on the Colts personally, but that's another video for another time. But yeah, this one still has me kind of tight. Number 6 is kind of a forgotten name, DeMarco Murray. He won the award back in 2014. I haven't heard about DeMarco Murray in years, but I forgot he was a pretty solid player. He was dominant on a pretty good Cowboys team, which had an MVP candidate in Tony Romo as well. Over 1,800 rushing yards, which was most in the league. 13 rushing touchdowns, which led the league. He also led in rushing yards per game with over 115. Cowboys finished 12-4 as a team, and then would go on to face the Packers in the divisional round and lose 26-21. After this, he would play one season in Philly, where he started about half that year, and then he would finish out his career in Tennessee before retiring. He's definitely one of the most underrated running backs of the 2010s. Number 5, Derrick Henry. In 2020, Derrick Henry won the Offensive Player of the Year, and you can argue he had a better season than Adrian Peterson did. He had a little over 2,000 yards, which is 5th most all-time in a season. had 5 yards a carry, 17 rushing touchdowns, which led the league, and nearly 127 rushing yards per game, which also led the league at that time. Titans finished 11-5, but did lose in the wild card to the Baltimore Ravens 20-13. Henry played about half the year before he got hurt, but he was on pace to get 2,000 yards once again. Henry's one of the most dominant backs we've seen in a long time, and he will be for, I would assume, for a bit longer, at least a couple more years. If he can't get it done on the Titans, I hope he goes to a team where he actually can get it done, because this team's kind of a clusterfuck, if I'm going to be honest with you. Number 4, Michael Thomas back in 2019. I know a lot of people forgot how good Michael Thomas is. Hey, I'm one of them. But Slant Boy really put up some stats back in 2019. He led the league in completions with 149, most all time. Almost 81% of his targets were caught. He had over 1,700 yards, which was most in 2019 and 5th all time. He had 9 receiving touchdowns and also led the league in receiving yards per game at almost 108. Saints were 13-3, but shockingly lost to the Vikings in the wild card off a Kyle Rudolph touchdown thrown by Kirk Cousins. The next season, he would play 8 games, and then the season after that, he wouldn't play at all. I do believe this season he should be majorly healthy, and I'm honestly interested to see how it goes. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes. Back in 2018, he also won the MVP this year as well. I've talked about Mahomes and how much I really appreciate his game. This was his first full season. Before this, he played 1 total pro game in the NFL. He was 14th this year in completion percentage. He was 2nd in passing yards and was 10th all time for a single season. 50 touchdowns, which led that year and tied 2nd all time. He was 2nd in passing yards per game and 2nd in passer rating. The Chiefs finished 12-4, but did lose to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game 37-31. Mahomes the next year would go on to win a Super Bowl, and ever since, he has consistently been a top 3, arguably top 1 quarterback in the entire league. And I can't see that changing for a little bit. I think it might be altered a little bit, at least for the Chiefs, because they don't really have much of a receiving core right now. Yeah, so far Mahomes is doing great though. Number 2, Peyton Manning back in 2013. Need I say it? He won MVP this year as well. Manning arguably had the greatest single season of all time. He led in passing yards. He was 3rd in completion percentage, threw the most touchdowns in a single season all time, had the most passing yards per game in a single season all time. He was 2nd in the league at that point in passer rating to only Nick Foles. The Broncos finished 13-3. They got diddled by the Seahawks 43-8 in the Super Bowl, but he would come back 2 years later in his final game and win the Super Bowl. Then would go on to retire. I believe he's been inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, just an overall exceptional season. Very few flaws, if any at all, with this season. Number 1, Cooper Kupp won the award this year. Kupp put up an all-timer. We have seen receivers be super dominant like Cooper Kupp. There was just something about it, had such a high motor, just had such grit, I would totally let Cooper Kupp date my daughter. He led the league in completions and was 2nd most all time for a single season. He had almost 2,000 yards, didn't quite get there though, and was 2nd all time in there. 16 receiving touchdowns, which was most in the league. He also led the league in receiving yards per game. A key thing to keep in mind with this season as well, he had an extra game to get more stats with this because this was the first year that the NFL implemented a 17-game schedule. So, take whatever you want with that with a grain of salt. Team finished 12-5, and unlike any other award winners in the last 2 videos, he actually won a Super Bowl. They beat the Bengals this year 23-20, and he was named Super Bowl MVP. I think Aaron Donald personally should have won it, but that's neither here nor there. Cooper Kupp with an all-timer himself right here. And there you go. What do you guys think about this list? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Let me know what other videos you would like me to make. If you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like. Subscribe once again if you haven't already. You already know, be sure to go follow my Twitch as well. Links in the description or in bio, depending what platform you're watching this on. Thank you guys so much for watching, if you're still watching up to this point, and I'm out. Peace out.